In today's video, I'm going to show you how to transform any song into a jazzier, more gospel-y version of that song. And we're going to do it using a technique called reharmonization. It's where you leave the melody as is, but change the chords up underneath. The only problem is that reharmonization gets complicated really quickly because it requires knowledge of a lot of music theory. You have to use your ears and make a lot of artistic decisions as you go along. But today, I'm going to give you a framework that's going to make reharmonizing a chord progression so much easier. And that framework is where we take a whole mess of chords and organize them into two categories. The first category I call journey chords, and the second category I call destination chords. So let's jump in first to a very short and simple progression, and then we'll take what we've learned and apply it to an entire song. Here we go. We're going to start with the tried and true D minor 7, G7, C major 7. This is a 2-5-1 progression in the key of C major, 2-5-1. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with those numbers or Roman numerals, I highly recommend downloading my chord scale charts. They make it so much easier to understand how these chords relate to the key. As you can see here, I have my C major chart up. And if we zoom in, you'll see the 2 chord right there is D minor 7. The 5 chord is G7, and the 1 chord is C major 7. The chord scale chart package comes in all of the keys, major and minor, and it's all free. So check that out, linked in the description and somewhere on the screen. We're going to be using these charts a bunch as we go through this video. But the question is, which of these chords is our destination chord? That's our first category, remember. And it's this one right here, as you may have guessed. This is the destination chord. It's our target. And leading up to that target, we are approaching it with these journey chords. We have this tension and resolution. The journey chords create this harmonic path that eventually arrives at the C major 7. So that's journey chords and destination chords in a nutshell, but we have to apply it now to an actual song. So we're going to be using the old classic Can't Help Falling in Love, made famous by Elvis Presley way back in the day. And the first phrase goes like this. I'm going to play it in C major just to make it really easy. And we're going to turn it into this. So what did I do? We started with the original progression, C major, E minor, A minor. And this A minor is going to be our target chord. So now we have to decide how we're going to get to that target chord. And the best way I've found to approach target chords and come up with these harmonic paths to get to a target chord or a destination chord is to actually work backward. So the question is, what's a chord that would lead nicely into the A minor? And a lot of the time, a 5 chord will do the trick. So what's the 5 of A minor? Let's go back to our chord scale charts. And this time I have the A harmonic minor chart up. And if we zoom in, our 5 chord is E7. So the question now is, are we going to just shove the E7 in, like right there? Or perhaps we take out the E minor and replace it with the E7. Now, this brings me to one of the most important points of reharmonization, and that is that you have to respect the melody. Do not disrupt the melody. Find a chord that supports the melody, and don't change the melody to align with whatever chord you want to use. So the melody note here is G, and that will actually work with an E7 chord. It's going to be the sharp 9. Check it out. It's kind of a funky, more dissonant sound, but we're going for like a jazzier, more gospel-y, soulful vibe here, so it will actually work well. So I think we should just take out the E minor 7 and replace it with the E7, and it will end up being an E7 sharp 9. And we can even put a sharp 5 in there to make it like an E7 altered chord. That's going to be like this. G is our sharp 9, and C is our sharp 5. E7 altered. And let's actually add a 7 to our A minor chord because it will fit with this jazzier version of the song, and together it sounds like this. Another option is to go with an E13 sharp 9. That's going to sound like this. It's a little crunchier. Maybe it could work on like a second time through or something. But let's keep going with our next phrase. We're going to pick up where we left off with that A minor 7. And the original goes like this. We'll stop right there. So that was A minor 7, then it was over a G, and then finally we arrived at F. So F is our next destination chord. Another thing you can do when reharmonizing is, instead of just focusing on how to arrive at your destination chords, you can also think about maybe changing the destination chord itself, substituting one for another. In this case, we have an F major, and a really good substitution for F major, or in this case, the 4 chord, because F major is the 4 chord in the key of C major. Again, here's our C major chart. As you can see, F major is the 4 chord. Well, a really good substitute for the 4 chord is a 2 chord, like D minor 7. And that's because there's a lot of commonalities between these 2 chords. If you take a look here, F major has an F, obviously, an A C, and D minor 7 also has an F, an A, and a C. So these 2 chords are kind of like cousins. So we can use a D minor 7 instead of F. It will sound like this. Okay, I like the sound of that D minor 7. Again, it works with the melody, which is an F. So now the question is, how do we get to D minor 7? Because D minor 7 is our new destination chord. So we can take out the F, and we can take out this G, because this G was really more of a passing bass line type of a thing to get us to F smoothly. So we don't need the G there either. So the question is, how do we get from A minor to D minor? We could do the 5 trick, where we go from the 5 of this destination chord and then land on it. Another way to do it is by going from the 7 of the destination chord, landing on our D minor 7. So let's go to the chord scale chart for D minor this time and look at the 7 chord. Now, in a minor key, in D harmonic minor, the 7 chord is a 7 diminished 7 chord, or C sharp diminished 7 in the key of D minor. So let's put that in, C sharp diminished 7. And we need to make sure that this lines up with the melody, right? So we have, that sounds pretty nice. The melody note before the F is E, and E works really well with a C sharp diminished 7. Okay, but I think we can add one more chord in there. One more chord right in here. Our melody note there is going to be a D. So let's see here. How about we connect this bass line? We have an A, a C sharp, and a D. What if we fill in the gap between the A and the C sharp with a B? And we use a G over B. G over B. That will work well because we have a D in the melody. So that sounds really nice. We can even enhance it more by going G add 9 over B. Let me play the whole thing so you can hear it better in context. Really nice. We have that smooth bass line, the A to the B to the C sharp to the D, and all of these chords work really well in C major and in D minor. C sharp diminished 7 gets us to the D minor 7, and this G add 9 over B acts as like a passing chord that really does live perfectly fine in the key of C major. If we go to our C major chart, obviously we have a G in there, G major, G, B, and D. That's your basic 5 chord in the key of C major. So nothing out of the ordinary there. On a blank page, I'm going to write out the entire chord progression we have so far, just so you can see it. And I think it's also helpful to see the Roman numeral analysis. So C major is going to be the 1. E7 altered is the 5 of 6. And then we have our 6 chord, 6 minor 7. This is a 5-7 chord. And then we have G add 9 over B, which is the 5 chord with the 3rd in the bass. And then C sharp diminished 7 is the 7 diminished 7 of 2. D minor is our 2 chord. And when I do those slashes, all that means is, for instance, right here, this is the 5 of, the slash is like of, 6, Roman numeral 6. And you see the connection between this 6 and there it is right there. Same thing here. This 2 right here is this 2 right here. So let's keep going. I'm going to play the original chords so we can have something to base our new chords off of. Now, all we really need to know is what's the destination chord of that phrase. And where did we leave off? Well, it was G major. So we have a G major chord. I'll leave some space. We'll put it right around there. And the question is, how are we going to get from the D minor 7 to the G? Well, we have to respect the melody, so let's make sure we do that. Let's see, what do we have here? The phrase before was this. And then we have an E in the melody, followed by our G chord there with D in the melody. Well, how about we try our tried and true, the 5 of wherever we're going. We're going to a G. What's the 5 of G? Here's our G major chart. What's the 5 of G? D, or D7 if we want to add the 7. I don't think we need to add the 7 there. Let's use a D major. And I'm going to put the 3rd in the bass. So D over F sharp. And we can even do that same thing we did before with the add 9. A lot of the time the add 9 just sounds really nice, especially over the 3 like that. But in this case, we actually have an E in the melody, which is the 9 on a D major chord. So we have this sound. All together. And I'm actually going to delay that resolution a little bit to our target chord using a really classic technique here. Instead of going right to the G, we're going to put a G sus chord just before it, delaying that resolution. From the D minor 7. Really nice. All right, and in terms of our chord functions, I'll try to squeeze it in here. We can work backwards again. The G is the 5. This is just the 5 with a sus. And then this D add 9 over F sharp is the 5 of 5. D is the 5 of 5, the 5 of G. G is the 5 of C. Use those chord charts. They really, really help. Here's the whole thing so far. From there, what does the original do? It goes from F to G to A minor. So we know our next target chord, our next destination chord is going to be A minor. Let's write that in somewhere around here, A minor. And the question is, how are we going to get to that A minor? Well, first I'm going to write in the original chords. So we have an F major and then a G major. Very basic 4, 5, 6 climb there. F is the 4 chord, G is the 5 chord, A minor is the 6 chord. And we can do basically that. We don't have to reharmonize every single chord. Maybe we just enhance the existing chords by adding some extensions. Like we could do F add 9, and we can resolve that F add 9 to a regular F. And then climb up to G7, because we have that B in the melody. So we have F add 9 resolving to F, and then that goes to G7. Sounds like this. And then A minor. Now I left a little bit of space in here because I think we can add another journey chord to get us to that A minor destination. Let's use the tried and true 5 of wherever we're going. What is the 5 of A minor? We already did that here. We know it's E7. So let's put an E7 in there. What's the melody note? We have to make sure that the melody note works with that E7. So the melody is... we have a B. B will work with E7. What we can also do here is put a G sharp in the bass of this E7 chord, which will give us a smooth bass line. We've got the F going up to G, then a G sharp, and then A, really smooth. Sounds like this. Nice, I like that a lot. And you can sort of stagger how the chords and voicings change. Check this out. So I'm gonna hold this F down and change everything else. So the F is now the 7 of G7. And then same thing, I'm gonna hold my B down and change the F to an E and the G to a G sharp. Check this out. So I guess it's not actually E7, it's just E major over G sharp. And that resolves to A minor. And I like this sort of Bach-like suspension, tension release thing going on here. Right, that E gets held over from the previous chord into the A minor. Let's keep that going and change the E up a half step to F, which gives us F over A. And then we can go F over A to G over B, because we have a D in the melody. Again, the original goes like this. A in the melody, B in the melody, C in the melody, and then, so instead of this D minor over F, we could do G over B, and then we have an E in the melody, so let's keep this pattern going. C major, and by pattern, I mean this bass line, this climb. Check it out, all the way from this F. We have an F to a G sharp, to an A, to a B, to a C. Sounds like this. And this is another guideline that you can apply to your reharmonizations, and that is looking for an interesting or smooth bass line. A lot of the time I find really cool reharmonizations for songs by just limiting my bass line to small intervals like this, where I'm just ascending or descending a scale. Altogether, it sounds like this from the third line. And then we have an F in the melody. So I'm gonna go with this F add 9 over A. I wrote the whole thing out again on a clean sheet, so it's much easier to read. Let me recap while I'm at it, just so you can hear what everything sounds like in context. So we have that F add 9 over A with my F in the melody. And from there, I think we can just do what's in the original, really. The C over G to a G, and then C. We don't have to reharmonize every single chord. So that's going to be C over G, and then G, and then finally resolving to C. And this final stretch of chords is actually not that complex. I know it looks like a lot, but when we analyze it, you're going to see that it's the 4 chord here. We've got the 5 chord, the 1 chord, the 4 chord again. This is essentially a 5 chord. C over G is a lot like a G sus. You can hear how that resolves to the regular G, which is definitely a 5 chord, and then 1. So it's like 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, twice in a row. Again, the main principle here is figuring out what chord you want to target. We targeted the A minor 7, we targeted the D minor 7, we targeted this G chord, we targeted this A chord right in here, we targeted this C, Anytime you see these cadences like a 4-5-1 or a 5-1 or a 2-5-1, these are the common cadences that pop up again and again. But the thing is, it's not just 5-1 in the native key. It's not just 5-1 in the key of C major. It's 5-1 in whatever chord you're going to. That's the key thing to remember. So the more of these cadences you learn, the more of these 2-5-1s and 4-5-1s you learn, the more options you'll have in terms of creating those chord paths that lead you to your destination chords. Let's play the whole thing one more time. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want to catch another video, you can click right here, and I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.